The wind howled like a beast outside. Snow slammed against the windows of James's small cabin. Buried deep in the hills of planet K-17, it was the worst storm of the season, maybe the worst in years. Inside, James sat near a dim fire, sipping hot tea. His shotgun rested close, just in case. Out here, trouble didn't come with a warning. Wolves, ice beasts, bandits, even wild bots gone rogue. He had seen it all before. He had come here to forget the war, to forget the screams, to forget the way Earth treated its enemies and, sometimes, its own soldiers. Outside, the storm roared louder. Trees bent. The solar panels cracked under ice. Then a knock. James froze. No one should be outside, not in this weather. Odd. Unless they wanted to die. Another knock. Softer this time. Weak, he picked up the shotgun and walked slowly to the door. His boots crunched on the frozen floorboards. His breath turned to mist in the air. He opened the door just a crack. At first, he thought the snow was playing tricks on him, but then he saw her, an alien woman, her skin light blue and covered in frost, her eyes half closed. In her arms, she held a small bundle, a child. Her lips trembled. Please. She staggered forward, almost falling. Please. Just one warm meal, for my daughter. James caught her before she hit the ground. The child didn't move. He looked around. Nothing but ice, wind, and darkness. No ships, no tracks. No shelter for miles. Hell, he whispered. Hey, what mess have you walked into? He pulled them both inside. The cabin was small, one room, one fire, and barely enough food for one person. But James worked fast. He pulled off the frozen blankets, wrapped around the woman and child. Their clothes were wet, torn, and useless. He gave them dry ones, human-sized. They hung loosely on her thin frame. He boiled water, heated canned stew. Placed the child, a little girl with pale green skin and large glowing eyes, beside the fire. The woman slowly opened her eyes. Thank you. James didn't answer. He just kept working. He checked the girl's pulse. Weak, but there. What's her name? He asked after a while. The woman coughed. Naira. You, her mother. She nodded. My name is Laura. Where's your ship? She didn't answer. What are you running from? She looked down. Hunters. That word made his grip tighten on the spoon. Later, the child stirred. Her eyes blinked open too. Big for her face, too full of fear. She didn't speak. Just stared at James like he was the monster in the storm. Laura reached for her. It's okay, Naira. He's safe. Safe, that was a word James hadn't heard in years. He sat down across from them. I'm not part of the war anymore, he said. I don't care who you are or what you are, but if you brought trouble to my door. Laura shook her head quickly. We just needed warmth. One meal. We will leave when the storm passes. James looked out the window. Snow piled higher. The storm wasn't ending tonight. You won't survive out there, he said. Not with a child. She didn't argue. Just held her daughter tighter. Hours passed. James gave them food. The stew was simple vegetable and protein paste, but to Laura, it was a feast. She didn't eat much. She gave most of it to Naira, who slurped it down like she hadn't eaten in days. James watched quietly. Where's your home? He asked. We had one, Laura said. But not anymore. Who were you running from? She stared into the fire, men with guns, ships without flags. They came in the night, took others. I escaped with Naira. We've been hiding ever since. James felt his stomach twist. He had seen that kind of thing before. Human raiders, smugglers, black labs. Some didn't care who they hurt. Alien or human, it was all the same to them. Later, that night, James sat by the window. He couldn't sleep. Naira slept now, curled up beside the fire. Laura leaned against the wall, her eyes barely open. James whispered, "Why come to my cabin?" She looked up, her voice thin. "We followed your fire." James raised an eyebrow. "From that far out, there's not much left out there," she said. "But I taught Naira to look for human lights. You always keep fire burning." James stared into the flames. He didn't know if he should. "Feel proud or ashamed? You knew I was human," he asked. Laura nodded. "And you still let us in." Her voice broke. "Thank you. Thank you for not letting us die in the snow." James stood up, grabbed a spare blanket, and tossed it over her. "We're not done yet," he said. Outside, the storm howled louder. But inside, for the first time in a long while, someone had said, "Thank you." And it mattered, the storm outside didn't stop. It howled like a living thing, shaking the roof of James's small cabin. Snow slammed against the windows, making everything outside look like a wall of white fog. He hadn't seen a storm this strong in years, not since the war. But inside, things had grown strangely quiet. James stood near the fire, watching the two strangers, an alien mother and her little girl, curled up beside the warmth. The child Naira was wrapped in one of his old wool blankets. Her eyes were closed, but her hands clutched the cloth tightly, like she was scared it might disappear. Her mother, Laura, sat close by, shivering but alert. Even now, after food and heat, her eyes still scanned the room like she expected someone to crash through the door. James noticed her fingers. Burn marks, old scars. Thin wrists, a woman who had suffered. A woman used to running. He tossed another log into the fire. The flames sparked higher. "You said they were hunters," he said quietly. Laura nodded slowly. "They didn't always hunt." James raised an eyebrow. "They used to work for humans," she added. "Scientists, soldiers. At first they said they were here to help. They gave medicine, took blood, promised peace. Then they changed." James didn't speak. He'd heard stories like this during the Outer Colony War, humans offering aid to alien tribes, then turning on them once they got what they needed. "I thought they were gone," Laura said. "But last month, a day, came back with collars, guns, drones." James looked at Naira. She saw it all. He asked. Laura's eyes filled with sadness. She didn't cry. She just held my hand and said, "Run, Mama." So we did. The fire crackled. The sound filled the silence between them. James sat down on a crate across from her. He didn't usually talk much, but something about this situation, this woman, brought the words out of him. "I fought in the last war," he said, staring into the flames. "They told me aliens were monsters. I believed them, until I saw what we did to your kind." Laura looked up. "Then why did you save us?" He took a deep breath. "Because I couldn't save them." She didn't ask who them meant. She seemed to understand. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any word. That night, Naira woke up screaming. James jumped to his feet, shotgun in hand. But it wasn't an attack, it was a nightmare. Naira cried out in a strange alien tongue, her eyes wide, body trembling. Laura rushed to her side and held her close. "It's okay, baby. It's okay." James slowly lowered the shotgun. Naira's glowing-in-the-dark eyes looked at him. She didn't say anything, but she didn't look away either. Laura wiped Naira's face. "She dreams of cages," she whispered. "Did they take her too?" James asked. Laura nodded. "Only once. They tested her blood. After that, they started chasing us harder. I think they want her for something more." James narrowed his eyes. He had heard of rogue scientists and off-grid military labs, secret places where aliens were studied. Sometimes children too. Later, while Naira slept again, James handed Laura a hot mug of tea. Her hands shook as she took it. He noticed something else, a brand on her arm. Faint, but real. Burned skin. A number 7R-44. He pointed at it. What is that? She looked away. A mark. To show I was part of their collection. Collection, he echoed. They didn't call us people, she said. They called us subjects. Felt his grip tighten on the mug. Laura continued, her voice low. There were others. Dozens. Different species. Different ages. Some died. Some disappeared. I escaped because a guard looked the other way. Maybe he had a daughter too. James stared at the fire. Anger burned in his chest. He stood up and went to a chest in the corner of the cabin. He opened it, pulled out something wrapped in cloth, a small black communication beacon. It hadn't been used in years. He looked at it, then at Laura. I have a way to contact someone. Old war friend. If things go bad, he might help. Laura looked unsure. Would he help us? James didn't answer right away. Then he said, he owes me. He placed the beacon on the table, but didn't activate it yet. The signal could be tracked. He'd only use it if there was no other choice. Outside, the wind screamed. Inside, a small girl stirred in her sleep and muttered a single word. Hide. James locked the doors tighter, reinforced the window boards. He knew trouble was coming, the kind that didn't care about women or children, as he finished checking the last window. Laura came up beside him. You didn't have to help us, she said. He looked at her. You knocked? She smiled faintly. You're not like other humans, she said. James didn't smile back. Don't be so sure. The storm began to ease by morning, outside the cabin. The snow had stopped falling, but a thick white blanket still covered everything. James stepped out carefully, boots crunching deep into the frozen ground. His shotgun hung across his back as he scanned the empty hills. The air was quiet. Too quiet, no birds, no wind, just silence. But James didn't like silence. It meant something was waiting. He moved around the cabin slowly, checked the edges. That's when he saw them footprints, not his, not Laura's, not Naira's. Fresh ones 3 sets human boots. Military issue. They circled the cabin but didn't come close to the front door. Whoever they were, they had kept a distance. Watching, planning. James bent down and touched the snow near one of the tracks. Still soft. These prints were recent. He walked back inside, locked the door behind him, and bolted it twice. Laura was sitting by the fire, holding Naira in her arms. The girl had stopped glowing in her sleep, but her breathing still sounded weak. Her skin looked pale. Even in warmth, she was struggling. We have a problem, James said. Laura looked up, eyes wide. What? Someone was out there last night, 3 of them. They didn't knock. They watched. Laura's face turned pale too. She held Naira closer. They found us. James nodded, and they didn't leave a message. That means they'll be back with more. He went to the back of the cabin and pulled aside a wooden panel. Behind it was a narrow staircase that led into darkness. What's that? Laura asked. Old war shelter, he replied. Built it when I moved here, just in case. She hesitated. You want us to hide? For now. If they come back shooting, I can't protect a child out in the open. She didn't argue. She picked Naira up gently and followed him down. The shelter was small but safe. Reinforced walls, a cot, extra food, water, even a light powered by a hand crank. James gave Laura a thick blanket and a jar of paste food. You'll be safe here, he said. Laura looked at him. You're going to fight them? They force me, he said simply. She reached out and grabbed his arm. They won't stop. If they want Naira, they'll come with more. bigger weapons, more drones. James looked her in the eye. Then I'll stop them before they get the chance. Back upstairs, James sat by the table and finally activated the black beacon. A soft blue light blinked. Then a voice crackled through. ... James, it's been a long time, Ray, James said. I need a favor. There was silence on the line. Then, this isn't a casual call, is it? I've got 2 refugees. One's a kid. They're being hunted by rogue humans. Could be ex-military, maybe Black Ops. Are you joking? No? Is the child enhanced? James glanced toward the cellar. Yes. Another pause. You know what they'll do if they find out. That's why I'm calling you. Ray sighed. All right, I'll get a ship moving. But it'll take a day, maybe more. You'll need to survive until then. I always do. That afternoon, James heard it. A low buzzing in the sky. He grabbed his binoculars and looked through the frosted window. A black drone. Small, fast, scanning the snow. It flew close to the cabin, paused, then shot straight up into the sky again. It had seen him. They know. James muttered. He moved fast set traps around the cabin, charged his old plasma rifle, and rewired the solar grid to trigger a flash overload. If the main door was kicked in, then he returned to the shelter and told Laura everything. She said nothing. Just stared at the floor. NYRA opened her eyes weakly. Are we going to die? She asked, in a small voice. James knelt beside her. No, he said. Not today. She reached out and touched his hand. James didn't pull away. That night, he barely slept. He sat near the window with the rifle in his lap. He watched the darkness like it was breathing at midnight. He saw them. 3 shadows. Human, moving with military precision. One of them wasn't human, it moved to smooth. An android. They stopped 20 meters from the cabin and knelt down. James raised the rifle, finger ready, but they didn't shoot. Instead, one of them raised a small scanner toward the house. A red light blinked then. They backed away slowly and vanished into the snow. James stayed awake till dawn. By morning, Laura came up from the shelter, her face pale, her hands shaking. They didn't come. Not yet, James said. He handed her a cup of tea, but they will. She nodded. You still want to help us? James didn't look at her. I've done a lot of things I regret. Letting you die in the snow would be another. Laura's voice broke. You don't even know. U.S., you're a mother, he said. That's enough. The morning sun was weak, barely cutting through the gray sky. Snow still lay heavy on the hills, like a thick blanket hiding the truth. James stood near the cabin window, binoculars in hand, scanning the horizon. He hadn't seen the men again. No footsteps, no drone, no movement. But he didn't relax. He knew how these people worked. They didn't rush. They didn't shout. They waited, surrounded you, watched you breathe, then struck when you blinked. Behind him, Laura fed Naira a thin broth. The child's eyes looked clearer today. Her small fingers moved with more strength, but she was still weak, still quiet. We need to leave soon, James said, without turning around. Laura looked up. How? I contacted someone. A pilot. He's coming with a ship. Laura blinked. A human. James nodded. An old war buddy. He doesn't ask questions. Will he help us? Even when he sees who we are. James turned. He'll help me. That's all that matters. Later that day, James found something strange. He had gone out to check the perimeter traps he set the day before. Most were untouched, buried in snow, waiting, but behind the shed, near the base of the trees. He saw it, a small metal box. Black, still warm. He picked it up carefully and opened it. Inside was a holodisk. Blinking red. He took it inside and placed it on the table. Laura stepped back when she saw it. "What is that?" she asked. "A message," James said. He tapped the disc. A red light appeared in the air above it. Then a voice, cold, calm, human. "To the resident of this cabin, you are harboring illegal fugitives. Surrender the alien female and her child. No harm will come to you. Refuse, and we will assume you are aiding in their escape. You have 12 hours." The message ended. The red light blinked once, then faded. Laura's hands were shaking. She held Naira close again, as if the message had physically struck her. James stared at the disc. 12 hours, he muttered. Laura broke the silence. They always do this. They act calm, reasonable. Then they strike like animals. James didn't respond. Instead, he walked to the old wooden chest again and pulled out something new. Data chip. Rough, burned around the edges. Alien symbols, carved into the metal. Laura's eyes widened when she saw it. "You still have that?" "You gave it to me last night," James said, "but you didn't explain what's on it." Laura hesitated. Then she nodded. "It's a recording. From the lab where they took us. Cameras, voice logs, files. Everything they did to my people. Everything they did to Naira." James stared at the chip. "This is enough to put them all on trial." "Yes," Laura said, "but only if it reaches the Galactic Council. And if it doesn't," she looked away, "then they will hunt her forever." James sat down, rubbing his hands together. He didn't speak for a full minute. Finally, he looked up. "If I give you to them, they'll leave." Laura flinched but didn't speak. James kept talking. "I won't. But you need to understand. They'll destroy this cabin. They'll kill me. And if Ray doesn't arrive in time, they'll take you anyway." Laura spoke softly. "I didn't come here to ask for your life. I only wanted my daughter to eat and live one more day." James stood up. "Well, I'm not giving them that." Satisfaction. He picked up the holodisc and threw it into the fire. It hissed and sparked as it melted. As the sun sank lower, James prepared the cabin like a fortress. He armed the window traps, reinforced the back door, charged the old turret mounted in the roof hatch. Laura helped where she could, though she was slow. Her body still ached, her strength not yet full. But her spirit was clear. She would not let them take her daughter. Again, James looked at her. "You fought before?" "Fought to escape," she said. "That's all I know how to do." He handed her a stun blade. "Tonight, we fight to survive." Hours passed. Snow fell again. Darkness returned. Inside, James sat in the shadows, rifle in hand, eyes fixed on the door. He didn't need light. He didn't need sleep. He only needed to hear the first step. Then he'd know at 2:17 a.m. It happened. A soft click. James's eyes snapped open. A shadow moved at the edge of the window. Then another. Then a flash-quick red light across the snow. He took a deep breath and whispered down into the cellar. "Stay quiet, no matter what." Laura didn't answer, but he knew she heard. The next sound was thunder. Boom crash. Glass shattered. James rolled to the side and fired one shot. A human figure dropped in the snow, screaming. Another came through the back metal legs. The android. James fired again. Missed. The android moved fast. Too fast. James dove behind the table as a blast scorched the wall. But then it, high-pitched hum, filled the room. The lights flickered, and then from below the floor, a new sound rose. A deep, soft pulse. Like energy flowing, like something waking up. James looked down toward the cellar. What the hell was that? Smoke filled the cabin. Walls burned black from plasma fire. James ducked behind the kitchen counter, coughing, sweat dripping down his neck. His rifle was nearly out of charge, and the turret on the roof had gone silent 5 minutes ago. Battery fried. He peeked through the smoke. The android was still there. Half its face had been blasted off, revealing a glowing skull of blue circuits. But it moved like nothing had happened. Cold, precise, deadly, dot. Its red eyes scanned the room, looking for heat signatures. James reached into his coat pocket and grabbed a small EMP grenade, his last one. He whispered, "Come closer." Just a bit. But the android didn't come closer. It turned toward the trapdoor downstairs where Naira and Laura were hiding. "No?" James shouted, and he leaped out, hurling the EMP at the droid. Boom. A flash of white light exploded through the room. The android froze mid-step, then collapsed, twitching, sparks dancing across its body. James didn't waste time. He rushed too. The trapdoor pulled it open. "Laura, get up here." He could barely hear her voice. "James, something's wrong with Naira." He dropped into the cellar. The dim crank light flickered. Laura knelt beside Naira, who was lying flat on the floor. Glowing faintly, her hands trembled. Her eyes were open, but not blinking. Her chest moved in slow, painful gasps. James rushed over. "What happened?" She woke up and started whispering strange words, Laura said, crying now. Then the air turned warm, and the walls shook. James looked around. The metal beams in the ceiling had warped slightly, as if something unseen had pressed outward. The air felt heavy, electric. He knelt beside Naira. Her tiny hands began to glow, again but brighter this time. The glow spread from her fingertips to her arms, then her chest. James pulled back. "Is she overheating?" Laura shook her head. "No, she's waking up." "What does that mean?" Laura looked at him on for the first time. James saw real fear in her eyes. She's not just a hybrid. She's something new, something they tried to create and failed to control. James's stomach dropped suddenly. A deep humming noise came from outside. A dropship, low, heavy. "Military class," Laura gasped. "They've sent the extraction team." James grabbed his rifle again. "We don't have time." "I can carry her," Laura said, struggling to lift Naira. James looked her in the eyes. "No, you run. I'll slow them down." "You can't fight them alone." "I won't be alone." Laura froze. "What?" James pointed at Naira. "She's not done yet." Back in the main room, the walls trembled from the ship's landing. Lights from above poured through broken windows. A voice echoed over speakers. "This is Strike Team Echo. Surrender the child. You have 30 seconds. James pulled out the black beacon again and activated the emergency signal. His friend, Ray, had promised help. Maybe he'd arrive in time. Maybe he glanced at the trapdoor. Still no movement from below. Was Naira okay? Then came the sound of boots, heavy ones. 2 soldiers in dark armor smashed through the front door. James fired once, hitting the first in the chest. The armor sparked, but the man didn't go down. Advanced shielding, the second fired back. James rolled narrowly, avoiding the blast. He ducked behind the fireplace. He was outnumbered, outgunned, tired, but, hey, he wasn't leaving without them. Then a scream. Not Laura, not Nyra. It was electronic, glitchy. One of the soldiers backed away, holding his head. His visor flickered. His weapon dropped. James stood in shock. Then he heard it. Footsteps, light ones from behind him. Naira walked into the room. She wasn't glowing anymore. She was shining. Her entire body pulsed with energy, soft and warm, like light wrapped in skin. Her eyes were silver, now not green. She raised a hand. The soldier's armor cracked with one wave. She pushed him back without touching him. The man flew across the room and slammed into the wall. UNMOVING. The second soldier fired, but the shot bent in the air, twisting away from Naira's body like she had a shield. James stared. Laura rushed in behind her. Naira. No, don't let it consume you. Naira turned. Her voice was quiet but firm. I'm not afraid anymore. The ship outside roared. James ran to the window and saw more soldiers exiting. Drones, snipers. Too many, he muttered. Then a sudden blue flash in the sky. Another ship. Ray. James smiled. The new ship dove fast, launching countermeasures. Missiles exploded mid-air. Drones dropped from the sky. Ray's voice came over James's comm device. Told you, I owed you. Time to leave, old man. James turned to Laura and Naira. Let's go. They climbed aboard the evac ship just as the enemy base began to burn. Ray looked over his shoulder and whistled. That, the kid? He asked, nodding at Night Nye. James gave a nod. She's not a kid. Not anymore. Naira sat by the window, staring at the stars, quiet and calm. Laura took James's hand. I don't know what we are now, she said, but thank you for giving us a chance to find out. James looked out the window too, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. The evac ship moved through the upper atmosphere of K-17, engines quiet but fast. Through the window, the burning snowfield shrank into the distance. The cabin inside was dim, lined with gray panels and old war seats. James sat near the emergency door, gripping his knees, still breathing hard. Across from him, Naira sat quietly, wrapped in a heat blanket. Her eyes were silver now, not glowing, but reflecting light like polished mirrors. She didn't blink often. She didn't speak. Just stared at the stars. Laura sat beside her, holding her small hand tightly. James finally broke the silence. What is she? Laura didn't answer right away. Her voice came out soft. She's my daughter. But she was never supposed to live. James frowned. Explain. Laura took a deep breath. It started in a lab round by rogue humans, off the books. They wanted to make a new kind of hybrid. One who could resist gravity, control energy, even access thought networks. They didn't care what they broke to build it. She looked at Naira. She was grown, not born. Injected with nanogenes before her heart even formed. Most of the others, they didn't survive. Naira did. James listened in silence. Laura's voice cracked. They called her Project Seraph. She wasn't a girl to them, just data. James glanced at Naira. But she's alive. She is, Laura said. Because I stole her. James shifted in his seat. You worked for them. I was a test subject, Laura said. But I cleaned their labs. I watched. I learned. One night, they left her unattended. I took her and ran. For 4 years, we hid. Changed planets, lived in caves, ate scraps. And they kept chasing you, James added. They weren't going to let go, she said. Naira is proof of something. Something dangerous. And something powerful. James rubbed his hands together. I saw her stop a plasma blast. She doesn't understand it yet, Laura said. She's not a weapon. She's just a scared little girl. Naira turned her head slowly. Her voice was clear, but strange almost. Layered, I'm not scared anymore. Laura leaned forward. Naira, rest. You've done enough. But Naira's eyes were wide. They weren't the only ones watching. Someone else saw me when I used my power. James sat up. What do you mean, someone else? Naira pointed at the stars. There's another ship. Out there, it's not with them. It's not with us, either. James walked quickly to the cockpit. Ray, his old war buddy, was flying. Change course, James said. Ray raised an eyebrow. To where? James hesitated. Somewhere off-grid. No ports, no signals. Ray nodded. I know a place. Hours later, they landed on a broken asteroid base floating between two moons. The base was dead, no lights, no signs of life, no air outside the ship, but the inside still worked barely. Ray opened the door. This place was used during the first expansion. Mining colony. We'll be invisible here. They set up inside a storage room. Dust covered the metal walls. The air smelled like rust and old fuel. Laura laid Naira on a cot. She was breathing. Slowly again, eyes dim now. Drained, James leaned on the wall. What happens now? Laura wiped her face. We hide. Again. James shook his head. She can't hide forever. She's not normal. She'll be found again and again. Laura stared at him. Then what do you suggest? Give her up. No, James said. I think she needs to choose who she wants to be. That night, while the others rested, James sat beside Naira. She opened her eyes, still silver, but soft now. Are you okay? He asked. She nodded slowly. I hear things, even when I sleep. What do you hear? Naira stared at the ceiling. There's a voice, a metal one. It says I'm the signal, that I was built to unlock something. James frowned. What kind of something? I don't know, she said. But it scares the stars. James looked at her and saw something new, a depth no child should. Carrie, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small dog tag. It had once belonged to a friend who never made it home. He gave it to her, for when you need to remember who you are. She looked at it, then whispered, Thank you. Dad. James blinked. He hadn't expected that word. Not from her. The next morning, alarms blared. Ray ran into the room. We've got contact, a known ship. It just dropped from FTL and started. Scanning, James grabbed his gear. They followed us. Ray shook his head. No, it's something else. Laura held Naira close. We can't run again. Not this time. James looked at the ceiling. Then we make a stand. No matter who they are. The unknown ship hovered above the asteroid station, casting a long shadow across the broken surface. Its engines didn't roar. Its scanners didn't hum. It simply existed, silent, watchful, cold. Inside the dusty old base, James stood near a cracked window, gripping his rifle. It's not human, Ray said, staring at the screen in the cockpit. And it's not part of the Rogue Science Division either. Laura stood beside him, holding Naira tightly in her arms. The child had gone quiet, again to quiet. Naira whispered, It's here for me. James turned. How do you know? I hear it in my head, she replied, like a song, but broken. Laura's voice trembled. What if this ship was always watching? Since she used her powers, maybe this is something older, bigger. James stared at the ceiling. He'd fought. Machines, aliens, even other humans. But this felt different. Like they were ants staring at a god. The ship didn't land. Instead, a beam of soft blue light formed inside the station right in the center of their room. Everyone backed away except Naira. She walked forward slowly. Her eyes shimmered. Wait. Laura called, running after her. You can't. But Naira turned to her mother and smiled. I need to see it. It doesn't want to hurt me. It wants to understand. She stepped into the beam. Her body lifted slowly till she was floating. In the air, arms spread, light wrapped around her like a cocoon. The room shook. The power flickered. But James didn't raise his weapon. He didn't even move. He felt it. 2. This wasn't an attack. It was a connection. Images flashed in Nira's mind stars being born. Civilizations rising and falling. Creatures made of energy traveling between galaxies. She saw a ruined city. On a dead world, she saw machines building towers that reached into space. And she saw herself, standing before them, all glowing, speaking in every language at once. A voice echoed in her head. You are the key. Not a weapon, a bridge. She didn't understand it fully, but she accepted it. Then, as fast as it began, the light faded. Nira landed gently on her feet. She looked older. Now, not in body, but in presence. She walked back to James and Laura. It's gone, she said. But it left a message. James knelt. What message? That I'm meant to choose, she said softly. I can hide, or I can help. I can be what they feared, or I can be what we need. Ray cleared his throat. So, what do we do now? James stood slowly. We stop running. We stop hiding. If this girl has the power to change everything, we make sure no one takes her again. Laura looked at James with tears in her eyes. We can't do this alone. You won't have to, James said. I know people, real people, humans, aliens, fighters, teachers, dreamers, will find a place where she's protected. And trained and free. Nira held his hand. I want to help others, she said. Like you helped me. Just one warm meal. That's all it took. James smiled. That moment, in the snow, now felt like a lifetime ago. A week later, they found a home. Ray flew them to an old peacekeeping outpost on a moon where no flags flew, where no army watched, and where forgotten people built new lives from ashes. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't safe, but it was free. They fixed up an old cottage near a river. The heater didn't work at first. The roof leaked. But Nira laughed when the first raindrops hit her nose. She was happy. Laura planted flowers outside. Flowers that glowed in the dark. Alien seeds from her own world. Home grows wherever love takes root. She said James spent his days teaching Nira how to track, how to read maps, how to defend herself, but also how to be human. She learned fast. Too fast. But she still smiled like a child when James gave her a chocolate bar. One night, as the three sat by the fire, Nira curled up in James's old army jacket. She looked up at him. Will people still come for me? James didn't lie. Maybe. Will you protect me? Always. She thought for a moment. Then, I'm not scared. Laura leaned in and placed a hand on James's shoulder. You didn't just save us, she said. You gave us a future. James looked at the fireplace the same way he had the night Laura first knocked on his door. Back then, he was alone, bitter, waiting to disappear into the snow. Now, he had a family. In the end, it all came down to one warm meal, one kind act. One door opened, and now, a child who could shape galaxies sat beside him. With her head on his shoulder, whispering stories about stars and snowflakes.